Tens of thousands of people have been gathering in several cities in Iran to mark the anniversary of the Iranian Revolution. The 1979 revolution saw the US-backed monarchy overthrown and the Islamic Republic established. Here are some of the latest pictures from Tehran. National flags and banners can be seen above the enormous crowds. But other banners took on a distinctly anti-US tone. Pictures from on the ground show a number of particularly negative representation of President Trump. And this might come as no surprise, as the anniversary comes at a time of inflamed tensions between Washington and Tehran.
They have total disregard for our country. They are the #1 terrorist state. They're sending money all over the place and weapons, and can't do that.
Our weapons are solely for defending our country and nothing else. Therefore, we shouldn't allow some people to create an unhealthy atmosphere in the region and the international community by sowing ideas in the current situation.
Is the United States capable of escalating tensions with Iran to the point of war? Well, we posed this question to political analyst and professor Saeed Mohammed Morandi from the University of Tehran.
The United States has many problems at home. The country is deeply divided. And the economic problems, alongside the fact that Americans are tired of war, make it highly unlikely that they would go after it and try to pursue a new war with any country, especially a very powerful country like Iran. The United States under Obama has been deeply involved in this region, and they've destroyed much of the region. The region has not been in any Shia versus Sunni conflict at all. It is it's extremism versus everyone else. So if Trump is really honest in ending extremism, then he has to end Saudi support for the slaughter in Yemen, as well as support for the Saudis in promoting Wahhabism as an ideology, as well as funding extremist groups. So Trump really needs Iran much more than he seems to think.
RT's Kate Partridge takes a look at the possible outcome of any further escalation.
So, what if the US were to go to war with Iran? The consequences would not only be military and civilian casualties, but also in the religious, economic and political spheres. Iran is a Shia Islamic powerhouse, though Shiites only make up 15% of the entire Muslim population, and violently oppose the Sunnis, who make up the majority, including in countries such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Pakistan and Turkey. Jihadists also follow extreme versions of Sunni Islam and are violently anti-Shia, such as ISIL in Syria and Iraq. So any conflict between Iran and the US could trigger a domino effect, and all-out conflict in the Middle East with alliances forged on religious lines. And then a wider proxy war could follow as the Western countries and other powers back up their Middle East allies. Iran is a member of OPEC and the world's 6th biggest player, producing 3.9 million barrels a day. If Iran's oil reserves were put under threat, the country could literally have the world over a barrel. The whole deal could collapse, and oil market chaos could ensue for the other producers and the world's consumers at the petrol pump. Any conflict could see Iran reverse the capping of their atomic program and focus on producing and stockpiling weapons to the fear of Israel and the wider West. It could also ignite a nuclear arms race involving Saudi Arabia and maybe Egypt and Turkey. The big beneficiary of conflict would be the arms producers, but maybe at a devastating cost.
Clearly, war has always been a profitable racket, and that remains the case. And you have members of the U.S. Army and the Pentagon telling U.S. media publications like Politico that there is certainly much profit to be made in any war and in any build-up toward a war.
Donald Trump has suffered a legal setback in his attempt to introduce a temporary travel ban on 7 Muslim-majority countries. It was initially blocked by a Seattle judge a week ago, but the Justice Department then filed an appeal. Now the U.S. Federal Appeals Court has refused to reinstate the president's executive order. Trump has vowed to challenge the decision, with the case now potentially going to the Supreme Court.
It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a
We have a situation where the security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court. It's a decision that we'll win, in my opinion, very easily.
Anti-America host Ed Schultz discussed the court's ruling with commentators both for and against the travel restrictions.
How big a setback is this? And I guess the real question is the president going to let the law do the work, or is his ego going to get involved here?
Well, he better let the law do the work, and that the American people have won. The rule of law still stands, so this is a pretty exciting day, I think. And quite frankly, if he doesn't let the rule of law stand, we're going to have a serious constitutional crisis on our hands.
He's already called it a political decision tonight. It's like he wants a big fight over this.
Well, if he wants one, he's got one, and I think it plays into his hands, to be quite honest with you. The American people, if you look at the polling, actually support this travel ban. They don't like the way that the media has portrayed it to be an anti-Muslim ban. It's ridiculous that they would call it that, and he's winning in that regard. And this is playing into his hands. I think it's only going to help.
The mainstream media hasn't pulled any punches when it comes to President Trump's policies, from front pages depicting him beheading the Statue of Liberty to news pundits pondering the impact of his assassination. And in many attempts to vilify Trump, his critics haven't been able to resist one particular comparison, as Caleb Maupin reports.
When you can't beat your opponent, bring up Hitler. Internet users have labeled it Godwin's Law.
Godwin's Law. The theory that as online discussion progresses, it becomes inevitable that someone or something will eventually be compared to Adolf Hitler or the Nazis, regardless of the original topic.
Now, this law was in full action during the 2016 presidential election.
Our negotiators' terrible deals. If I'm elected president, you have to take out their families.
And it didn't stop after the vote, either.
No Trump! No KKK! No fascist USA!
I feel Hitler in these streets, a mustache traded for a toupee.
Do you think you're being unfavorably compared to Donald Trump?
Don't get me wrong, Conan. I agree with a lot he says. A lot. Like 90% of what he says. I'm like, this guy gets it.
Okay. Things got so bad that Britain's top diplomat felt that he had to step in.
I do find it distasteful to make comparisons between the elected leader of a great democracy, the elected leader of a great democracy, and 1930s tyrants.
In Europe, the trend is just as popular. Anti-establishment politicians like France's Marine Le Pen or Norbert Hofer in Austria are routinely compared to the Führer. And don't forget Vladimir Putin. It's starting to get ridiculous.
Please stop calling people Hitler.
The Hitlerization, the term's been weaponized. The term fascism has been weaponized. And in the case of America, we'll apply the term Hitler to make the aggressor appear like the victim. And certain politicians are using that as a sort of a term of scorn against Donald Trump. Eventually, it will fade away because it doesn't have any substance to it.
Perhaps the real problem is that while rational arguments might be more productive, they don't sound as exciting on cable news. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
There's anger in Rio de Janeiro with mass demonstrations over a proposal to privatize the city's water utilities. This story and more after a break.